Welcome to the Take a Seat podcast. This is Mario,
And Clint,
and thank you for joining us tonight or day, whatever you're doing, whether you're washing dishes or doing laundry or just sitting down, smoking a joint, whatever you want to do. Thank you for being here. We do appreciate it. And we also appreciate everybody that had some type of response to us in our first episode. I think it's necessary, and yeah, it's appreciated. And to those that were concerned, we're actually smoking cigars. So if you, from time to time, hear a small silence, it's not that we have nothing to say. We're just smoking cigars. So it happens.
Yeah.
So, it's all right. So let's just jump right into it. There you go. Silence.
That's fine.
Yeah, they'll be all right. So today, or a couple of days ago, actually, I was watching a video on YouTube, and it was talking about the scene to a movie called Interstellar. Now, the movie itself is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, or whoever's listening to this, if you haven't seen this movie, you need to go and watch it after you hear this podcast. 'Cause I promise you're not going to regret it.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
And so it was talking about this scene in the movie where what I'm about to explain isn't going to spoil the movie because it's just a small section of it. And so the scene, you have these astronauts, right? They land, and before they land, they understand every hour that you spend on this planet is equal to 7 years on planet Earth. So they already have pressures from planet Earth because they're trying to gather resources, and they're really desperate just trying to find a solution to the problem. And so they have, their plan and what they're going to do, and they understand the significance of the concept of how much time is going to pass if they fuck up. But, they don't really think about that. So they land, and then this plot twist happens that I won't spoil, but it ends up killing somebody, and it ends up costing them, I think, 2.5 or 3 hours on that planet. Now, this is significant because the main protagonist in the movie, he was under the impression that they would only be on this planet for maybe an hour, just in and out, and that's it. He knows that he could potentially miss 7 years of his children's lives, but the bigger purpose is, he's trying to save them and the planet and whatnot. But this time passes, and they're panicking, trying to find a solution to get off the planet because they understand that they're losing time, that somebody just died, but they can't turn around. So it's very hectic, and the soundtrack itself makes sure that you understand what's going on and that you feel it too. And so they get back to their ship, and they had left a pilot there to make sure that the ship is okay and that they're okay, they can communicate. But when they get back, they see that the pilot has a gray beard now and that he's drastically aged. And so they ask him how much time has passed in Earth years. And he says 21 or 22 years, something like that. Which, again, in the context of the movie, is the biggest blow you can give to anybody. Imagine, you just wasted 21 years unnecessarily and you didn't get a solution to anything. That's exactly what happened. So the video is trying to highlight the significance of time and how it applies to the movie and the decisions that are made, the potential mistakes that can happen because of those decisions, and the realization of how much time you can lose making certain, whether it's necessary or unnecessary mistakes. And so fast forward, you see the protagonist go up to this little seat where they're able to watch tapes that they can hear from Earth when their loved ones are trying to reach out to them. And but they can't send one back, apparently, or something like that. And you see the protagonist just start breaking down in tears because he's watching his kids, who when he left them, they were 9, 10 years old, literally grow up before his eyes. And on top of that, at the same time, losing hope and never seeing their father ever again. Because they don't know what happened during the mission, but like the son thinks that the dad abandoned them and he just saved himself. The daughter's just like holding out, and it's a lot to process at one time. And Matthew McConaughey, being the protagonist, does a fantastic job of conveying the emotion both visually and vocally of, I think, how somebody would react to that if somebody like were to receive 21 years of somebody trying to communicate to you and then at the same time losing hope and ever communicating to you. And this obviously struck a chord with me when I first saw the movie, and I'll admit I was crying, like not bawling out, but like that one single tear that'll like come down your face. And so the video just kind of wanted to make sure that the appreciation for this scene and for this film is obviously, reiterated, and just to make sure that people, whoever watches the film, understands just how special the directing, the acting, the concept of the movie, everything is. But you could say that I overthink stuff. I mean, it's a valid argument, but I think I analyze. That's the word I want to use. And so I started analyzing the scene and analyzing the concept of time. And I started thinking about, like, sure, it's just a movie, but the principle is true. You can make certain decisions in life, right? And think that you can afford to make certain mistakes and think that you can handle the short-term consequences of said mistakes. It doesn't matter if it's buying a car, getting a woman pregnant, getting married. You may think that these things are like, oh, I can just get a divorce. Oh, we can just be separate parents. Oh, I can just not pay the car and they can tow it and I don't have to deal with that anymore. But what you don't think about is that in returning the car, you're messing up your credit. You're making it harder for you to get another car, to get an apartment, to get anything in general. Raising a child with two separate parents as like two separate households and having that conflict between the parents takes a toll on a child. This isn't just speculation. This is actually proven. There's multiple studies and there's cases, and you can even say it like us as individuals. I mean, I may have a father, but I don't consider him my dad. I'll say that. I mean, I may speak from a privileged position because I know, like, at least I have a father. You have someone that you can potentially develop something with. But I think it makes a difference whether or not you consider your father your dad. And kind of transitioning a little bit, I think time is applicable in that context in regards to like me and my dad, right? So I'm 27 now, and I think my dad is something like, I don't know, 55, 55, 56, something like that. And, I've never really, I remember thinking as a child and as a teenager, like, I felt bad for saying it, but it was just my reality. My dad is kind of like my roommate, really. Like, he never taught me anything. We never had bonding time. Our bonding time was Christmas, holidays and birthdays. And I guess those are privileges because at least you got to do them. But I don't think he realized that, like, I saw him that way. And I don't think he cared. And at this point in time, he doesn't. I know he doesn't. He's told me himself, we've had our back and forths, and that's just the relationship that we have. But though I'm willing to deal with those consequences of his decision, that doesn't mean that that's something I'm comfortable with, or that, like, it doesn't make me think like, damn, like, I'm 27, you're 56, 57. You're closer to death than I am, and our relationship isn't getting any better. How exactly you fix that, I don't know. I guess it would, take
Time.
effort on both on both parties, but the most important thing is time. But what do you do if time is passing by and nothing is happening, and something as valuable as a relationship with your father is on the damn line?
Hmm.
How are you supposed to fix that if you are supposed to fix that? You know? And it's just something that, thinking about the movie, thinking about the concept of time and applying that to my life, it just kind of made me think a lot, both about myself, my values, my relationships with people, my relationships with my two siblings, my relationships with my girlfriend. Um, but that may just be me. Like, I don't know. Do you have that kind of thought process?
Of when?
Well, just time in general, really. I don't know. Is that something you think I may be overthinking, or is that something that, I don't know, is something that applies to you?
Hmm. Um. I think that time is extremely important. Of course. Um. I think that time gives. It's not so much time itself. It's death,
Hmm.
because time doesn't really matter as long as you have eternity. But death gives you a time limit, and death gives meaning to life.
Yeah.
If you don't have that time limit of when you expire and you don't have any more time to do or fix the relationships or accomplish or whatever it is in life, like I think death is extremely important for us as people uh, to focus on. I think that most of the time we spend our lives ignoring death and treating death as though it's not something that's to come soon.
Hmm.
Like, just because people can live to 100 doesn't necessarily mean that you will live to 100. And I think that even though I'm going to say that this is what I think, I I don't know if I truly act like I believe what I think,
Hmm.
because if I truly believed that tomorrow wasn't promised, I think that I would live my life with a greater sense of urgency, and I would take advantage of the opportunities that I have, or try and create more opportunities for myself, or just completely treat people different. If I treated this life as though, because man, you see people that are on their deathbed, all of a sudden they want to mend relationships, they want to
Yeah.
give their life to God, they start begging to God, oh, I'll clean up my act if you just take away this cancer, or whatever the case is, because the fear of death is extremely normal,
Yeah.
and I think that if we lived with that sense of tomorrow actually isn't promised, despite the statistics saying that because we had a lot of yesterdays, we're more likely to have another tomorrow, or because of our age, we're more likely to have another tomorrow. I think that if we treat life as though tomorrow isn't promised, we'll actually live life.
Hmm.
We'll truly live life and treat it as though it's valuable. We'll treat people as though they're valuable. I think that the impact that we make on people will be greater, because we'd be living like, okay, what is it that I have to do today? And I think that especially if you're mature and not thinking with a YOLO mentality, like you only live once.
yeah, I haven't
So
heard
let
about
me buy as many hookers as I can and do as much coke and weed as I can today.
Yeah.
I think that if you're mature, you're going to treat that day as though, let me express my love toward the family members that I have a relationship with, or girlfriend or friends, and let me actually live in the present moment with them and enjoy this moment instead of always thinking about all of these other things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, or really giving somebody that needed advice that you know that they need, or having that difficult conversation with somebody that you know that you've needed to have, but you've just been putting it off because you think that you have more time. Because man, like when my dad died, like my dad committed suicide. So when he died, dude, that was like a total eye opener for me, because I thought I had more time to mend that relationship with him. Because I grew up without my father, and I've seen him in person probably a total of 4 times after the age of 4.
4 times.
Yeah,
Damn.
approximately 4 or 5 times after the age of 4. So toward the end of his life, when I turned 18, I ended up reconciling with him and forgiving him, because I played a part in why he wasn't a part of my life, because I developed so much hatred for him for not being there, that I was like, you know what, I don't want you here, period. And when we mended that relationship, I was so used to living my life without him that I prioritized other things. But then when he died, or when he took his life, it showed me that I wish I would have taken advantage of the time that I had, as far as the opportunity that I had to really learn from him. Because even though he wasn't this perfect guy or this extremely admirable man that's accomplished great things in life, you don't live 50 years without learning something that is valuable to pass down. And I felt like I could have, if I would have treated the time that I had available to me as though he was going to die soon, I would have asked a lot more questions to try and understand how he got where he was. I would have asked a lot more advice to at least see his perspectives on things.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that I may think are wrong today, that 5-10 years from now, I'll be like, dang, that was totally right advice, but I'm too ignorant to understand why that was right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like in high school, it's like my family, they would always be like, oh, whenever you get a job, make sure you're saving money. Make sure you save your money. Save your money. That way you can save for a house. That way you can save for a car.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, all that's on my mind is buying weed, buying Jordans, making sure I'm the flyest dude at school on a consistent basis. Yeah. And it's like, what do I have to show for myself as a result of that? Nothing. Like
zero.
Nothing. That was useless. And that was because I was so ignorant at the time that great advice sounded like foolishness to me.
Yeah.
And I think that I would have at least gotten advice that, even if it was wrong, that would have been a greater understanding of who my dad was internally and how he thought, and that would be valuable to me. Like, but yeah, man, like I think that I think time is taken for granted, and I more so I think death is taken for granted, because we compartmentalize it and push it to the back because we don't really know what to do with it. We don't really know what to do with death,
The idea of it.
with the idea of it, nor do we want to face it, because death it's that monster under the bed. It's the monster in the closet. It's like, you know what? Let me just hide under these covers and hope everything's okay. Let me not confront this thing. Let me not look at it, because if I look at it, who knows what might happen, you know? And
It's scary.
it is. It's terrifying, dude, because nobody really knows what happens when we die. And it's like, yeah, we have religion that gives us concepts of death, and of course, you know, I'm a Christian, so I do believe in life after death. But that's my belief. That's my belief through faith that that's what happens. Do I know? I don't know. Nobody knows what happens, you know?
At all.
But I mean, that's what I actually believe, is that there's a heaven and a hell, and that after this life, you live eternally, period. But again, I can't prove that, so I don't know. But yeah, man, I think, God, I think time, like, it's crazy, dude. Like, this conversation is actually making me feel some type of way right now, because I realize how what I believe to be right isn't the way that I live. Like, I go through the motions of waking up, getting dressed, driving to work, and treating work as though it's just work, getting off from work and hanging out. But I don't really feel like I'm treating my days as though it's my last day. I don't feel like I'm loving people and making the impact on people that I should be if it was my last day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, if I'm going to die, what am I leaving behind
I see that.
for the people that are still going to be here? What am I doing to make sure that even though I'm dead, something of me lives on in this earth? And it's not even about me getting the glory. It's about living your life and not just being a consumer that came here, breathed up the air, ate the food, and died and didn't actually contribute because you weren't a producer in this life. It's like, I don't want to die being a consumer. I want to die being known as a producer, somebody that actually contributed to this world and left something behind that my children or my friends or the stranger on the street, I mean, anybody that I run into, leaving an impact that gave them some wisdom or made their life even slightly better, made their day better. Because you never know what could happen, dude. Like, I was watching a video today. I'm not trying to get off topic, but I think it's still on topic.
Okay.
But I watched this video today of this guy who has autism, and he made a YouTube video, and he was so joyful. He was so happy because a girl hugged him. And to you and me, like, a hug at this point in our life, it's like, okay, that's cool that a pretty girl hugs us, but it doesn't get us that excited, you know?
Not fulfilling.
It's not fulfilling, but for him, that hug meant the world. And it's like, for somebody out there, hey, how's your day going? Or a smile, or just some sort of act of kindness could be the difference between them committing suicide that day and them choosing to live another day because they see hope in humanity.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's a fact.
It's like, I'm really feeling conviction, because I feel like, man, like, what am I doing to make a difference? I know what I'm doing to make a difference in my life, trying to gain more finances, trying to do this podcast with you.
Yeah.
But what am I doing to make a difference in people? Because at the end of the day, man, like, money comes and goes.
Yep.
But love is eternal, and love makes a difference. I know it sounds cliche and it sounds corny even that love conquers all, but it's a phrase for a reason. It's passed down from generation to generation as a phrase because it's generally believed to be true that love does conquer all. And yeah, man, this is a good topic because it opened up a lot of it was a mirror to me. It's like you hold up a mirror and you get to see yourself for the first time.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the world and comparing yourself, like comparing what you think you look like to the rest of the world, it's like you're looking in a mirror and you're finally looking at who you truly are. And that's what this conversation is for me, is it's that mirror. It's like, dang, where are you really?
Yeah.
What are you really doing with your life?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I do. You know, well, before we continue with the podcast, I mean, I appreciate the audience, but if you need to pause it or need a moment, feel free to just say it. Like, it's fine.
No, I'm good, dude.
Okay.
I mean, I like this.
Just checking. You know, you never know. You know, you bring up a lot of things that I don't think most people think or care for, because, like you said, the majority of people, the common folk, the ones that aren't rich, you know, like most of us, the general population, I don't think most people really care for the idea of, or really sitting down and having a realization that, like, death and time as a period, as a construct of like a small window that you have in the grand scheme of things to do something. I don't mean like become a millionaire. I don't mean like, I don't know, the next Jeff Bezos, be the next Bill Gates. I mean like do something that is significant to you or to your loved ones, leaving an imprint on this planet, or really in the essence, big picture wise, of mankind. Myself, I've had that realization for years, but for a long time, I also, and even now, I still go through the motions, but I actually have a different outlook on life myself. Like, I try to live my life to the best of my ability with the circumstances that I'm in and the resources that I have now. And right now, it's surprising for me to say it, but I am confidently really happy. Both with my relationship with my girlfriend, both where I am financially. Like, I'm not struggling. I didn't struggle with COVID. I didn't struggle with anything because I made the right moves to make sure that I'm in a position to be that comfortable. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my mind, I understand that this is just like this for a period of time. So I started thinking, okay, I'm not going to be rich. I don't think I have the intellect to make something that is significant enough to get me riches. But I want to be, for reference, when people listen to music by Marvin Gaye, specifically, what's that song? I think it's Mo City Blues, where it's like one where he's like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. You know that song? Mm-hmm. So those that know, you know, you can turn that on whenever you're going through a heartbreak. You can turn that on whenever you see a black person getting shot on the news. You can turn that on whenever you have some type of question or like looking for some type of comfort. Something about that song brings comfort to you. Even though he, in the song, was talking about actually injustices against black people back in that time. I think it was the 60s or 70s. But something about the essence, the spirit behind the song makes it resonate decades later. And I'm a huge fan of music. I've told you openly, I love all genres of music. Yeah. And I know I've shown you and even some of the people that listen to this, all types of songs that you might not even like it, but myself, I'm open to it, you know? But I also apply that openness to anything in life. Like, here we go. This might get a little intense for me, so if I pause, don't mind me. Kendrick Lamar made this I think it was what was it? Soliloquy or a small poem, right? At the end of his one of his songs called Mortal Man. Uh, hold on, let me actually get it. Mortal Man poem. Google is your best friend in cases like this. All right, all right, all right. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
That's the one
So
with Tupac on it.
yeah, this is exactly. So this song, it's the ending to an amazing album called "To Pimp a Butterfly," and in that album, he's being very introspective, both with this perception of the world, what the world perceives of him. He comes to terms with a lot of different aspects of his life that he sees, both from coming up from being poor to having money and the consequences of having money to begin with. And he ends it with an interview with Tupac, um, because he feels like that is his OG. He listened to his music like a lot of people. Millions of people listen to Tupac or just any artist for, some type of guidance, whatever. So to end the entire album, he reads something to Tupac, and it's this poem that he found applied to him. And I think it should be fine for me to read it, right? I mean, yeah, it's a podcast. Yeah. So I'll read it verbatim. Here we go. The caterpillar is a prisoner to the streets that conceived it. Its only job is to eat or consume everything around it. I'm sorry, its only job is to eat or consume everything around it in order to protect itself from this mad city. While consuming its environment, the caterpillar begins to notice ways to survive. One thing it noticed is how much the world shuns him but praises the butterfly. The butterfly represents the talent, the thoughtfulness, and the beauty within the caterpillar. But having a harsh outlook on life, the caterpillar sees the butterfly as weak and figures out a way to pimp it to its own benefits. Already surrounded by this mad city, the caterpillar goes to work on the cocoon, which institutionalizes him. He can no longer see past his own thoughts. He's trapped. When trapped inside these walls, certain ideas take roots, such as going home and bringing back new concepts to this mad city. The result? Wings begin to emerge, breaking the cycle of feeling stagnant. Finally free, the butterfly sheds light on situations that the caterpillar never considered, ending the internal struggle. Although the butterfly and the caterpillar are completely different, they are one and the same. So he ended it with that. Oh shit, I'm getting goosebumps because I love that poem. I absolutely love it. He ended it with that because he wanted to tell the audience, at least from my interpretation, he understands, who he was, and he understands who he wants to be now. And that seeing life the way he used to see it, though that was his reality in the confines of his paradigm being your daily life, what you do, what you think, etc., blinded him to the bigger picture. But it wasn't until he went through the experiences that made him who he was at the time he made the album that he realized that the mistakes, the errors, the sacrifices, everything that went into making what he made, aka the album, was a part of him. And both the future that he envisioned for himself, the present that he was living in, and the past that he was wanting to learn from were all one and the same. Obviously, just the rappers, so yeah, it's one and the same, but the myth, the ideology, the state of mind, the way of thinking, all encompasses who he is, even if he didn't acknowledge it or even know it. The way I interpreted that is who I was at the moment that I heard that album is not who I'm always going to be. And really, at that moment in time, I thought about it. And it just kind of at that point in time, man, I was going through some shit. I mean, emotional, physical. Things in my life were just in disarray on another level to the point where I wanted to kill myself. That's not just an exaggeration, that is a literal thing. I got to the point where I actually had a 12 gauge shotgun in my mouth and I wanted to pull the trigger. I did. And what made me feel worse, like even worse, was that my parents were in the next room and they didn't even realize it. They were watching some soccer game. You know, I don't blame them for it because I was doing that shit in hiding. But the point is, quite literally, having that album, that poem, stopped me in my tracks. It stopped me from ending things on a negative note. Now, that's just my experience. But what I'm getting at is that I also realized, like, just because my life is that way at that point in time, that doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. That doesn't mean that I'm not able to get out of this. It doesn't mean that I don't have the means to do so. I just need to figure it out, which I think a lot of us do. You know, you don't have to be on the board on the, on like me, knocking on death's door deliberately and trying to figure shit out because you're lost. And it made me open.
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, I'm going to be open to anything, whether it's good or bad. I just want to no, forget this. This isn't going to be the end of me. And I started doing things random. Just having that state of mind at that point in time made me do some really bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I lived by that, and I still do. Now, except in a more educated manner and in a more mature way, where I don't close myself just to what I know. I don't close myself off to things that I don't understand. Instead, I want to take them in, exchange information exchange information if I can, or ideologies, and have the conversations that make me understand, or at least make me see things in a different light. Right. But I understand that that's a unique attribute that not everyone either wants to possess or wants to have. I don't think most people.
What is
The ability to recognize when something is wrong in yourself. I'm not talking about in relationships or finances. I mean that the inner battles.
Yeah.
Having that in you is not something that everybody has.
Yeah.
More important, the willingness to act on that is, I don't think, something that everybody has. I think most of us go through the motions and are comfortable just with whatever is ahead of us. And if you're making $15 an hour, that's what I want. That's it. I'm accustomed to this lifestyle, and it is what it is.
Okay. So I think, I think that. So Carl Jung, you know who Carl Jung is?
No idea.
Okay, he's a psychologist. He's an extremely famous psychologist, but he's no longer living.
Oh, wow.
He's the same psychologist that coined the term extrovert and introvert. So he's the one that created those titles for an extroverted person and an introverted person. But Carl Jung said that in order for you to basically break an addiction, you have to serve a God. And by that, it's not the literal, when we think of God, it doesn't necessarily mean, nor does it not mean, this omniscient, omnipotent creator that is in the heavens managing the lives of humans and the earth and the galaxy and the universe. When he talks about serving a God is an ideal of perfection. So when we think of a God, we think of perfect. We think of righteousness. We think of the best possible example, right? Like, even not even just saying like take Christian God out of it, but you could even say Hercules. Like he's the example of he's an archetype an archetype of strength, right? There's I don't know. There's whatever God there is. Let's say Greek mythology when it comes to I don't know, the god of the sun, the god of the moon, like all of these things, like they have certain attributes that are admirable.
Okay.
And they're admirable because they're perfect in their not attainment, but possession of.
Okay.
Okay. So when it comes to like this God, for some people that God that can make them break that addiction or break their cycle or change their view could be their girlfriend. Maybe they're a struggling addict and their girlfriend or wife is like, look, I'm going to leave you if you don't do this. And that one day, that one moment actually changes them because they now have a God, something that becomes greater than themselves that they can't control.
I get it.
Okay. So because this force is greater than themselves and they can't control it, but they want to maintain it in their life or they want to attain it in their life, they choose to sacrifice one pleasure for another pleasure.
Yeah.
So there were certain pleasures that you had at the time that you ultimately sacrificed for other pleasures. So for instance, like alcohol is a pleasure.
Yeah.
But in this example of the man that I'm talking about, it's like, okay, he's willing to sacrifice that pleasure for a greater pleasure, which is this relationship with his woman.
Yeah.
And in your case, I'm asking, what was your God? What was it that was greater than you that inspired you enough to let go of the life and the beliefs that you had? Because those beliefs you had them because they were serving you. You even, and it may have been deceptive, but in some way they were serving you.
Yeah.
And that's why you chose to hold on to them in the first place. But they came with negative effects to those beliefs. What was it that was your God at that time? Yeah.
Yeah. It's I'm so happy that I have the ability to identify it now.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have asked me that, hell, even 3 years ago, which is 2 years after I started this whole process, I wouldn't be able to identify it. So here, I think actually, I'll tell you what they were, and I want to explain why they were. Because I think not just want you to, I don't just want you to understand, but I want the people that are listening to understand too. So at that point in time, 2015, when I heard that it was November 2015 specifically, drugs to the ones that were close to me for their privacy, I'm not going to say their names or, it was weed from what they saw. But in my own time, it was, I'll just say it like it is, masturbation, lean, perks, some other downers that I don't even remember, and some uppers. My God was going to this job that paid me $10 an hour average, doing drugs, hooking up with girls that I met left and right, Tinder, Instagram, and just kind of ignorant to the idea that the things I was doing were actually horrible for me. But I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that because I didn't have anyone. This is where I revert back to my father. My father didn't really give a damn about what I was doing or who I was doing things with or really anything that had to do with me outside of you're safe. Okay, you're alive. At least that's how I interpreted it at that time. But then things started happening in that year inside of my family that just kind of made circumstances and relationships worse.
Yeah.
And I was lost. I mean, on another level of lost. Not just because I didn't have any guidance, but because the things that I was doing were all I knew. I didn't know that there are better things to do with your time that aren't drugs or sex
Mm-hmm.
with other people, with yourself. I played Xbox a lot to lose time and just get my day over with.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was quite literally it. I would wake up, smoke, go to work, smoke after work, chill with some people, chill with my siblings, go eat, smoke some more, leave the house, do some shit, go have sex here and there, rinse and repeat. Like that's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
Those were my gods. Those were the things that I looked at as valuable,
Mm-hmm.
that gave me something outside of just fucking existing and playing Xbox.
Right. Well, so let's say that those are, for the sake of like imagery, let's say that those are sculpted idols, right? You know, like in uh, early uh, early religions, they would make idols out of, let's say, clay or gold or something
Yeah.
like that. So like let's say that those are your idols, right?
Yeah.
That you worshipped, that also had control over you because you served them. What was the ultimate God that made you sacrifice those idols?
Peace of mind. Peace. And
But why would you care to exist? Like what was your reason for even wanting to attain peace rather than choosing to have peace through suicide? Because you gain peace that way through death.
yeah, that's a fantastic question, first and foremost. And the answer is, well, I don't want to put them on a pedestal, but my siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they get a lot of the credit,
Mm-hmm.
just to be transparent,
Mm-hmm.
for who I am today. Like,
That's awesome.
we may have our differences because one, they're women, and then me, I'm me.
Yeah.
Also, our personalities and our perspectives on things. But
Yeah.
and just transparency, I am here today because of them,
Mm-hmm.
primarily.
Mm.
So, at the time of what was going on, I was looking at them and like seeing the effects of what was going on between me and them and the relationship with their parents, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw that they needed me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
my existence isn't just my own to value.
Yeah.
Like, somebody else is looking at me for guidance at that point in time. Right now, there are these thriving fucking badass women, which I'm so proud of, so they don't need me now, obviously.
Right.
But at that point in time, it wasn't like that.
Right.
But I'm not telling you this because like I was like, oh, I'm gonna be this role model. Like, no, I just recognize like, dude, we can't fucking take ourselves out right now because it's not just us this is gonna affect.
Yeah.
How are you gonna leave them with these fucking maniacs?
Yeah.
And you're just gonna continue this cycle, and I had the biggest fear that they might turn to like, I'm not talking down on anyone's lifestyle, but like women on the street.
Yeah.
Being in bad relationships with horrible fucking men that I know that I surrounded myself with, that I could recognize as bad shit. They'd make horrible decisions because they lost the guidance of their older brother, which at the time I could see as necessary, right? So they were really one of the biggest, if not the biggest factor to which made me decide like, one, this is not where this is going to end. But two, they need me right now. I can't think about myself, even if I feel like shit and I want to take myself out. This isn't my decision to make, nor is it my time to go.
Yeah.
So I want to say I put it off because I attempted it again like a year or two later.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, they were my motivator.
Yeah.
They were my reason to exist. They were my reason to dedicate myself to like fuck everything else.
Yeah.
My focus needs to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That's good.
Yeah, but it had to be like, again, in hindsight, I'm very grateful that I was able to see that. I'm not going to tell you that at that point in time I made the best decisions, because I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, that kind of started a cycle of change,
Mm-hmm.
significant change
Yeah.
between us and in my life. But now, again, in hindsight, it was necessary.
Yeah.
Something needed to change drastically
Yeah.
for my circumstances, for my paradigm, for my life to change.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I'm not going to tell you that I loved every second of the change, because I didn't.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that happened financially, my living space, emotionally, relationships, like a lot of stuff happened. And I would say I'm honestly like, or I used to be traumatized,
Yeah.
because it was that significant.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, if they ever feel comfortable coming on here, that conversation can be had with them present, because I don't want to just give my perspective like that was everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it was necessary, and I'm eternally, until a day I die,
Mm-hmm.
grateful I had that poem.
Yeah.
Grateful that I was able to listen to that album, because
Mm.
it really changed my entire vision for myself, and then some of the principles that I had. Like, again, just to be more transparent, I might get in trouble, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be really racist.
Mm-hmm. I did too.
Really racist.
Yes.
Like, to the point where I was ignorant to the thought that my comments and the things that I said could potentially be racist.
Yeah. I was racist against my own people. That's the funny thing. I wasn't even racist against races other than the races that I'm actually made of, which is backwards. Usually people are racist against races that are opposite of them.
Yeah.
I was actually racist against my own races. Like, the races that make me up as a human being were
Yeah.
the ones that I was racist against. It's crazy, dude.
Why were you racist against them, or what made you want to believe that?
Because my father not being in my life and him being a white male made, especially white men, I lumped them all into the category of no good, because that was the only example that I knew
Yeah.
at the time was, oh, well, this guy's no good, so therefore they must all be no good because they look like that.
I see that.
And then I'm also part Spaniard and part Mexican. And I was racist against Mexicans. And that actually was for that was just ignorance, dude.
Yeah, it's straight up ignorance.
I mean, it was all ignorance. Like, I was ignorant even being racist against white males, because ignorance is simply not knowing, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know because I never took the time to actually be around white men.
Yeah.
And I guess there was a fear of being hurt, or maybe it was a fear of abandonment, a fear of being hated by them. And it's funny because the hatred that I put out into the world was exactly what I received back from those people.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a magnet, and it's like, okay, or if you want to be real spiritual, it's like the energy that I was putting out was the energy that I was getting back.
Yeah.
Because they could sense that,
It was
and
in your
then what it
demeanor and
does
words.
is, yeah.
Mhm.
And then what it does is it solidifies your belief that they're all no good.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, that's because that's what you're putting out
Mhm.
towards them. So what do you expect? You treat people bad or look at people with disgust and they're going to still treat you well?
Yeah.
That's not realistic.
Nope.
People like people that like them. Like, you're not going to, most people won't treat people well that are being treated bad by that person, if that makes any sense. But it's like if somebody, the regular normal way of being a human is you hate me, well, I hate you too. because I'm pretty awesome and there's no reason for me to hate me because I didn't do anything to you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the way that it went, man. And like, when it came to like Mexican, it's like I'm part Mexican, but I hated that because I had insecurity of being low class. I had insecurity of being at the bottom, you know?
Yeah.
And when like me living in Texas and me seeing Mexicans not driving Bentleys or not having all of these materialistic things and high status in society, like they have pretty low status. Ironically, they actually make a lot of money most of the time,
Yeah.
and that they just don't flaunt.
Straight up.
But it's like I was, a lot of it was just insecurity, man. It was all birthed out of insecurity. Insecurity because I didn't want to be hurt, or insecurity because I didn't want to be looked down on. So I tried to put myself in another category
Yeah.
and identify as something other than what I was,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could be accepted or elevated greater than what I actually was,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I do. I do actually. And I mean, look, principles in my character is not racist. I will admit, I find the humor in like comedy that does make fun, not to an extent that's like all the way extreme racist,
Right.
but I can find the humor in,
No, yeah.
in some jokes. That's a different context,
Yeah.
but I'm just putting it out there because I don't want to seem hypocritical.
Right.
But that aside, all of that we talked about has to do with time. Like, how many years did you spend trying to figure yourself out to get to where you are now? I can tell you now, for me, from that point now, up until like I started being who I am now, 4 years.
That's how long it took you to.
Be the better version of myself. The person that wanted to be intuitive, the person that wanted to strive, the person that wanted to motivate those around me.
Okay.
The person that was
Yeah.
open to hearing a different perspective outside of my own and understanding that you can be wrong. Or
Yeah.
at least you're misinformed.
Yeah.
You know, like having my senses the way that I have them now, my state of mind, mentality, the way I perceive the world took years to develop. And even now it's still developing. I'm not going to act like I have, like I'm this top tier motherfucker that has it all figured out. I don't.
No.
But the root of it all, time. And time is our biggest enemy.
Yeah.
Time isn't this finite amount. Is this finite amount of this object, this thing that we don't have forever, like you were saying earlier. It's something that must be recognized, so that hopefully with that recognition that you don't have all the time in the world to do certain things, it would motivate you to, you know what, fine, I'm gonna get my shit together. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna get a better job, go back to school.
See, the one thing, like, this is, before we started this, I was gonna have a rebuttal for you against time being the enemy. And that's like going to the gym and thinking that the weights are the enemy because they are causing resistance. And because when you're lifting the weights, all you're thinking is what a strain and what a struggle it is. But it's like, if we had no time and we lived forever, do you think we would accomplish anything?
No.
We wouldn't accomplish much. If we accomplished anything at all, we wouldn't accomplish much.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing demanding that we do it now. Like the fact that we aren't eternal, and that we won't have perfect health for the rest of our lives to be able to accomplish what we have, like those stresses, those weights cause us to grow muscles that can then lift more to contribute. Like ideally, the purpose of lifting weights is not just to look good, but it's to be of service through your newfound strength so that you can be a contributor to the world. Are we on the same page?
I understand.
You understand? Like that's the ideal, like the moralistic reason of actually getting strong is so that you can then use your strength to contribute to the world. So it's like, I don't see time as an enemy. I see time as time and the end of our time as possibly one of the greatest blessings that we have, because if we lived eternally, we wouldn't cherish our loved ones as much. We wouldn't cherish the relationships that we have. We wouldn't cherish the things that we have. We wouldn't strive for much because we can always say, "Oh, I'll do it later." And with that type of mentality, you never really do it later. You always put it off.
Yes.
And then you spend an eternity doing nothing.
Absolutely. That's facts. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So then, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What is something before you die or pass? I don't know. I don't want to get, I guess, no, I know YouTube has something. Before you become unalive. I'm serious. That's a YouTube thing. I promise you it is.
Okay.
So before you become unalive, what is one thing you hope to accomplish? I don't mean like go parasailing or go, but what is something that you want to be remembered for or to leave as an imprint on this planet or in people?
Lessening the suffering of humanity. And it may not even be the world, right? But I mean humanity as in just the humans that I'm around. Whether that's like, hey, bro, could I borrow $20? It's like I just lessened their suffering. Or it may be having a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody that's really going through a struggle. Yeah. And it's like I'm lessening their suffering because now they can share that burden with somebody that's going to carry that weight with them. Or at least they'll feel like they're carrying that weight with them. And that's it, man. Like I want to be remembered as a servant. I want to be remembered as somebody that came and tried their best to be of service, whether it be through giving wisdom, advice, or actually physically helping somebody to do something that they can't do for themselves or don't believe they can do for themselves. And that's both psychologically and physically. What about you?
No. I thought about that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole renaissance, personal renaissance that started really in 2016 up until now. I used to think, be rich, leave my kids and sisters and girlfriend, wife, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
Mm-hmm.
So my drive was find a way to get famous or find a way to get rich.
Yeah.
But you have examples of billionaires and millionaires having destroyed families, and everyone's traumatized and everyone's on drugs. Everyone's addicted to something, but they all have money.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized, okay, that's not everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what's going to keep my family, my legacy going.
Yeah.
So I have to think long and hard about what's something that realistically you can actually put into use outside of monetary things.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that I want to be the voice No, I know I'm going to be, actually. I'm
Mhm.
going to be the voice inside of my closest friends' heads, inside of your head, inside of
Mhm.
my sister's, inside of my girlfriend's or future wife's head, that when you feel down, when you feel like you're fucking crying because you're going through a breakup and you're like, fuck this job, fuck the world, fuck this car, whatever.
Mhm.
I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to do anything, whatever. You're going to hear my voice in your head and say, get up,
Mhm.
stop.
Mhm.
No. Remember who I was. Remember what I stood for.
Mhm.
Get up, move, do something.
Yeah.
Don't just sit here and waste your fucking life or
Mhm.
your time just because you feel fucking sad right now.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is going to make a bigger impact to my
Yeah.
siblings and to my closest friends,
Yeah.
more than leaving them a car, more than leaving them a house or anything,
Yeah.
because I went through life navigating without any guidance. So even like this podcast, whoever listens to it, like I'll tell you right now, if you're listening to this and you're just moping around, like you're going through a breakup and you're just listening to support, dog or woman, get up, go work out, go work on yourself, go do something outside of what it is that you know. Get uncomfortable
Mhm.
because it's your comfort that has you where you are now.
Mhm.
Granted, as long as don't make yourself homeless in the process, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, take it literally, but don't put yourself in a too vulnerable position.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that I'm going to be
Yeah. No,
that.
you are, because I can speak like just for my life. You've done that for me. Like there's things that you've said, and you're the tough love guy. Like that's what you are. Like if there's anything that you're going to be remembered for, it's for your tough love, because that's that's like the value that you have offered to me is you don't allow people to have pity parties. You basically just tell them quit being a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, yeah, man, like in my life, you've done that for me. And I know that you've done that in other people's lives, whether or not they've acknowledged it, because they probably just haven't sat down and thought, oh man, what an amazing guy Mario is. But I think that whenever people do go through a similar time from whenever you've corrected them, that they're going to remember that whenever they get into a similar situation. And that's gonna live on.
Mm.
That's gonna live on. That's good, dude.
I'm glad I've had that impact on you. And, you
Mhm.
know, regardless, I think of where the future holds our friendship or whoever's listening to this now, regardless of what the future holds, always remember who your character is, who you are, what you strive to do. Like that's what's gonna keep not just you going, but those that are around you going.
Mhm.
Like there's this expression that I know is super corny. It's super corny, but there's truth in that. Is that eagles fly with eagles.
Mhm.
And I think the other half is like chickens walk with chickens or whatever. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to say that I'm better than anybody because I don't. I don't even think I'm remotely close to being better than anybody.
Mhm.
But your mentality,
Yeah.
how you carry yourself,
Mhm.
how you see things in life makes a difference when the circle around you is supportive of those values. Like that's another thing that I wasted so much time on unnecessary friendships, unnecessary people that I gave titles to of friendship or of acquaintance or of somebody that I thought was, of value to me because we got high together or
Yeah.
we worked out together. Like,
Yeah.
it's at the root of everything is your essence, is your character and who you are that determines whether or not you're significant to one those around you or to this fucking planet to begin with. Like an exaggerated example, but I think a valid example.
Mhm.
Ooh, I think it might be a controversial one, but it's just for the point, right?
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler is remembered for being a fucking mass murderer and being the epitome of evil.
Yeah.
Well, what was his character?
Mm-hmm.
Ruthless,
Mm-hmm.
but amazing qualities of a leader.
Yeah.
You can't guide a country or multiple countries to a world war
Yeah.
without having characteristics of a leader.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm completely saying he's wrong. He's an evil piece of shit, and I hope he's rotting in hell and burning in the hottest of flames.
Mm-hmm.
But to the point, what is he remembered for?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, everyone knows it was wrong, but it's his character.
Yeah.
He surrounded himself with people that enabled that, right?
Yeah.
And granted, these were Black Eagles. They were flying in the horrible direction and doing horrible things, but the point still stands.
Yeah.
He surrounded himself with people that motivated him to want to complete his objective. And that's what I try to do with my friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Commit genocides. No, I'm just kidding. No, not even close. I'm completely kidding.
Yeah.
But getting back to it and just keeping it 1,000%,
Mm-hmm.
that is who I am at the root of my character now.
Mm-hmm.
That is who I want to be for years and decades to come and even centuries afterward. This audio file is going to be on the internet forever. There's a reason I started this. I wanted to start this podcast with you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me phrase it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that millions of people across the world go about their lives just thinking that I'll do this shit next year. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll mend this relationship tomorrow. I'll get my shit together next year. Let me have my fun right now while I'm young, or let me have my fun right now because I got the money to do it. Like, no. Think big picture. Think like your actions need to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know that they matter, I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter how small or how big.
Yeah.
What you're doing with your life right now is going to impact you throughout time.
Yeah.
That's the entire point of everything. Like, that's why I go back to, like, sure, time isn't this being that's like actively like your time is done now.
Yeah.
No. But the premise to everything stands with time.
Yeah.
We have a finite amount of time to do things in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Mine, I could die at 30 years old, but I know that if I pass at that age, what's left of me is my essence, is the mentality that I had, and that the people around me are going to be like, that's what that motherfucker was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I'm going to be, I'm not going to lie to you. Having this mentality backfires a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hurt a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
And
I do too, even though I don't try to.
I've, a lot. Yeah, but it's a necessary, not evil, because it's not evil, but it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had somebody to straighten my ass out. That's where like my father would have came into play. But that's why I said like he's not my dad. Like he's my father in title, and he's always gonna have my respect for having me in his balls. So that's that.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't get credit for me being the man I am today, or who I am going to be tomorrow, or 10 years from now, or when I pass. He's never gonna get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that one day we can come to an agreement like, hey, all this time was lost, but whatever time is left, let's make the most of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sad thing. And it doesn't make me emotional because I know it's going to happen. Like, I know, like you said earlier, humans, we have this thing where like, when you know, bam, this is how much time you have left, you got to get stuff done.
Yeah.
It isn't until then that everybody wants to get saved or mend your relationships or
study for the test
or do something to like make sure that by the time you're gone, you're at least fulfilled with what the hell you did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live my life that way.
Mm-hmm.
I make sure that I put myself in a position to where my actions lead to beneficial consequences. Like consequences, by definition, is just
Yeah.
the result. That's
Right.
it. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean good or bad.
Yeah.
And I try not to. I deliberately try not to harm anyone emotionally or physically. I'm not even a fighter anymore. Like I've had multiple interactions with people, as you know, a friend of that you and I have mutually. That there have been plenty of times. I'll admit to you, I wanted to just like beat his fucking face in, but that was an emotional reaction. It wasn't one of understanding. It wasn't one of like, really, this is all miscommunication.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, he knows down to the root of who I am that anything I tell him or try to do for him is of benefit to him in a good way.
That's your intention.
That's the intent.
Yeah.
Granted, it's not my job to do so, and you know, obviously, I don't have. It's not up to me to say, well, this is what I'm gonna do for you because it's best for you, so you have to do it. Because you know, I'm not anybody's dad or anything like that. I can only hope to motivate somebody to want to do something, and they take that and thrive on their own.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
With that being said, Interstellar is a fantastic movie.
Full circle.
Interstellar is a hell of a movie, but it's
really
one
is.
of insight, you know, and it just time. I'll say it again, is our biggest enemy, even if you don't know it. Whatever you're doing with your life, fine, thrive in it, but just remember that there are consequences to every decision you make. Whether that's spending 30 years at a job and hoping to retire and get to see the fruits of that retirement, or living life in the fast lane and just saying, fuck it. Whatever.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Let's go.
I don't think that it's time that's our greatest enemy. I think that we are our own greatest enemy. I think that we hold ourselves back. Like, it's not time that's holding us back. It's our mentality that holds us back from doing what we know that we're capable of, or doing what we don't believe that we're capable of because we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
But they're both correlate.
Yeah, no, definitely, dude.
They intertwine, and though they are,
I'm splitting hairs.
Yeah. I mean, they're on the same spectrum, you know. It's things that everybody should think about, and if you don't think about it, stop and take a moment to think about it. After this podcast, think about that. Think about your relationships that you have, the friendships that you have, and really give yourself a moment to think, like, is this actually benefiting me in the long run? Just because you have a friend that you've known since childhood, that doesn't mean that that's the beneficial friendship for you. Because you can both be hard workers and making sure that your families are, you know, like traditional Mexican shit where we're both work construction, we'll drink beer, our families are great.
Yeah.
But how are you raising that family?
Yeah.
How are you leading that family? Both of you may have the same lifestyle, but you have completely different values.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I make sure I do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anyone to think that I represent certain things that other people represent that are against my values.
Yeah.
As a man, as a partner, as a human, or as a responsible adult, you know? And I kind of came to the realization that I'm never going to be rich. But what I leave on this earth will be my essence.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to live on throughout the rest of my life and throughout the rest of the lives of the people that I hold some type of influence over. And to whoever listens to this podcast, like, if I were to end it here, and I think I think this would be do you think this is a pretty good place to end it? Yeah. I mean, we're going an hour 20, so I think it's a solid time. Look, to end it, My value and what I'll tell you, and just always remember this: get up. Never stay still because shit is going bad right now. Find a way to keep it moving. And that may be insensitive to certain circumstances, but I come from the fucking dirt too. I'm not saying that I'm living the most lavish life, but what I'm telling you is that I'm not a quitter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not never going to stop thriving for more or striving for better.
Yeah.
And, to those that are listening, keep it fucking moving.
Yeah. I think we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to make this world a better place before we leave? And if it's nothing, then do something about it. And if it's something, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us and still being here. If you're listening to this, this is Take a Seat podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel,
And share.
Share. Yeah, if you think this is valuable information, or if you think this is a conversation that somebody needs to hear, share it.
Yeah.
Or fast forward and show them a little clip, whatever the case may be.
And if you hate it, share it and complain about it.
Yeah, we want to know why. We want to engage with you and talk with you. That's the point of it being called Take a Seat.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk with us. So, with that being said, this is Mario
And Clint.
We're out.